Welcome back to the channel. My name is Mark. I hope you all are having a wonderful day or evening. In today's story, Opie found out his wife cheated on him after his Apple Watch showed she was at AP's house after claiming she was at her mother's. Ope then showed up and confronted her and things got crazy. Now her life is a complete wreck. Let's get into today's story to find out what happened. My wife and I got married in 2018. I worked as a paralegal and started my own side business, and when she got pregnant, I bought a house in her family city and eventually lost my job. So from 2018 to 2020, I was essentially in grind mode, working a low-paying job and hitting major hours of overtime each week just to make sure the house, wife, and child were secured 80,105 hours per week. During this time she was not working. She said she was, but in 2019, I learned she was not and was staying at her parents' house in order to make it seem that she was working. In 2019 to 2020, my business began to grow and started to match my day job's income, so I stopped working overtime. She got a job at a factory and she was happy to finally make her own money. We didn't have sex a lot because of the kids and stress. At the end of 2021 I got my first major business contract, $250,000, and I was extremely happy because months before this, we were forced to give our newborn baby up for adoption because we simply could not afford it. She has 3 kids from her last marriage plus 1 with me, plus I have one of my own that I get half the year. With 5 kids and a 2-bedroom house and both of our cars, both 12 years old and reading 200 on the odometer, it just wasn't plausible for me to be able to carry all the expenses for the year or two while she recovered and prepared to return to work. In 2022 I doubled my business income, $500,000, and took her on trips/vacations every few months. I stayed home with the kids and was a great father. I told her she didn't have to work anymore, but she insisted on working because she liked her job and didn't want to have to ask me for money. So I essentially was a stay-at-home father, cooking, cleaning, and watching the children, but I still paid for all the bills, mortgages, and cars. I even employed her brother that came from prison, and paid her sister's college tuition. We still never had sex and she began working longer hours. In September, some girl messaged me saying she worked with my wife at the factory and said she was cheating on me and texting guys. I confronted my wife. She denied it and even told me I could drive her to and from work to prove it. So for 4 weeks I drove her to and from work. While I drove her, she went to work later. She usually was gone from 4 a.m. 7 p.m., but now it was 6 a.m. 5 p.m. The first week of October, I stopped and she began leaving at 3 a.m. and coming back at 8 p.m. On October 23rd, she said she was going to work on Friday, they always have Friday off, and that she would sleep at her parents' house because our son was sick, implying she picked him up from his cousin's slumber party, and that her other sister's car wouldn't start, and so she was letting her use her SUV tonight, and that her phone was going to die because she had no charger. Obviously that was about 40 red flags, so I immediately tracked her Apple Watch. Her phone was off and checked her parents' and sister's houses. She wasn't there and they hadn't heard from her. The children were still with their cousins at the slumber party too. I went to the location of the Apple Watch and knocked on the door. No answer. I walked to the backyard. It was a 1-bedroom trap house with a fence knocked over, and went to the window and saw her phone and watch laying here next to her, and what looked to be another person next to her in bed. I knocked on the window and began recording with my phone. Her affair partner hopped out of bed fully naked and yelled at me after whispering something in her ear. He said he would fight, so I went up front to wait for him and put my pistol away in my car. He never came. So I left, and the following day I told her parents and family everything and showed the video to them. They disowned her. She stayed at that guy's house from Thursday night until Saturday night. I still had access to her Apple account and saw her messages to the guy saying that she would stand by him, to come back and eat her food, that she would clean his house for him, that she would perform sexual acts, etc. She refused to do any of this for me, said she was not a slave, etc. Sunday he kicked her out of his house after getting tired of having sex with her. So she crawled back to my house. I changed all the locks and all her belongings were bagged up and outside. She stayed outside for 5 hours before she got my son, and made him wait with her out in the cold. So I let them in. I didn't speak with her until Tuesday. She said she only slept with him one time, that they worked together and had been talking for a week. She did it because I didn't show her love. They had been friends on Facebook since July, and her brother confirmed that he had been to his house to drop off food several times with my wife but didn't know who lived there. She said there were 2 other guys she talked to at her work, but that she only sent them nudes but never got physical. Despite trying to hook up 5 times this year, they never were able to. She said they all didn't have a car, so she gave them money and rides to and from work. She promised that was all her cheating and that she never cheated before this year. The next day I messaged 10 men who she worked with and had as friends on Facebook and offered them $500 cash to admit and provide concrete proof of her affair with them. One responded and showed photos of her meeting him at a hotel on August 10, 2020 when she was sick. Another said he had no proof but admitted to having sex with her in 2019 a few times and was able to verify her tattoos. Other men did not respond. She denied that anything had happened before this month, that this was the first time she got physical, and that the other times were just sexting, which she didn't see as cheating, and she only did it because I didn't show her love or attention. She begged to make it work to give her another chance and said she would quit her factory job and be a stay-at-home mom. Made me laugh that she thought I would reward her with that. I told her to stay working and save up to move out by my birthday in December, that I would file for a divorce and that she could have the house. She signed a prenup, so she had no claim to the business. She said she would kill herself before losing me, and that she still loved me. I told her I didn't feel anything for her, and that beyond my son I didn't care about her or her other kids. I don't want a used wife, even though I understand what made her cheat. If she cheated because I didn't show her attention while I was working long hours building a secure foundation for our family, I already know I won't be able to show her any kind of love without remembering all the men she had sex with in the past, present, and future. Opie, I'm terribly sorry for your loss. It's seeming like no good deed goes unpunished. You pretty much did everything right and got what you did not deserve in return. I don't see any alternative other than to divorce. Even though she has lied about how many times she cheated, forgive her, yet I would not trust her going forward. Divorce is the only option I see here. By the way, her excuse that because of you overworking to see that she and your children were financially stable was absolutely no excuse for her cheating. She claims you neglected to show her love and affection. Did she ever come to you and initiate any love and affection? Set her out with the trash she belongs with. Now let's get into today's second story. So my wife and this guy have been coworkers and friends for over a year now. They mostly work together but sometimes talk via text and Snapchat. He is 26 and she is 33. I'm 37. He lives in his parents' basement and has a part-time job at the company and no real financial future. He is also not very attractive and doesn't seem like my wife's type. Anyway, her boss at work had a birthday on Saturday, and I dropped her off at the bar where a bunch of other employees were going to celebrate. I fell asleep on the couch at around 1 a.m. and woke up at 6 a.m. the following day. I'm not sure why, but I had a bad feeling about her not coming home before I was awake, so I looked through her phone and found Snapchats, which made my heart sink. She messaged him at 2:30 a.m. and said he's asleep. After I found the texts, I took some photos and woke her up and confronted her. She came clean, admitting to it all after I showed her the photos, and said that they didn't have sex because he was too drunk to get hard, but they fooled around and tried to. She claimed this is the first time they ever got physical, but I am not sure I believe it, since from the text they had clearly discussed it, as they both knew what they were talking about. I'm now trying to decide if I want to divorce or reconcile. I had an initial consultation with a lawyer today. We own a house together that neither of us can afford on our own and have 2 kids ages 6 and 4. I'm looking for advice or support from this community. Do you think I can keep this relationship alive? She has agreed to go zero contact. Give me full access to her phone and enter counseling. I also told her that she needed to inform her parents or I would, and she called them both immediately after. I'm not sure why I did this. I guess I wanted her to own it, and I wanted her parents, who I both respect very much, to know why I would be divorcing her if I choose that path. Update. So I'm relatively new to Reddit and have never made a post before this one. So I'm not sure if this is the proper way to update, but here goes. I read most of the comments here and thank you for your advice. I met with a lawyer yesterday and took home the client intake form, which I filled out in front of her shortly after. I have my first consultation with a lawyer in 2 weeks, as that was their earliest appointment. She has been very remorseful and has done everything I have asked of her so far. She also said she wanted to prove to me that this was a one-time mistake but didn't know how. Then I saw that some people suggested a lie detector test, so I brought that up to her. She agreed to take it and asked to do it sooner than later, so I called today on my lunch break and scheduled one for Friday. The questions will basically cover what happened the night in question, whether they have ever done anything previously to that, and whether or not there have been any other partners during our marriage. If she fails any questions on the test, I will not attempt reconciliation, and even if she passes them all, I still may not. This is all too fresh and my emotions are too high to make any decisions at this point in time. The only decisions I've made are things she must do for me to even consider reconciliation. In terms of the AP, they work for the same company but do not work at the same store, and have no day-to-day interactions at work. I am not making excuses for her, and am not trying to diminish the disrespect she has given me or my family. Does anyone have any experience with lie detectors? I'm assuming I can't be the only person here who has had a spouse take one. Also, I do not wish to talk to her HR and make her lose her job. If she has no wages if we divorce, I do not want to have to pay support. Our incomes are slightly similar, with mine being higher. And if some way in hell we do try to work it out, I will also need her financial help to maintain the household. You have done all the right things so far. You have consulted with a lawyer so you can begin to understand your options and what divorce and custody would entail. Make sure to ask the lawyer how to separate and protect financial assets, including joint accounts and credit cards. You were also smart to get her to tell the truth to her parents so she cannot spin this differently if you end up divorcing. This is not their first rodeo. It seems like it's been going on for a while. She got comfortable and careless and you found out. Let the minimizing and blame games and gaslighting begin. Why else would he presume a married woman would have condoms to have sex with him? Be honest first and foremost with yourself, knowing she has lied, treated you like a dummy, and disrespected you in the most primal of ways. You think you can live with her. Also, she will lose what little respect she has for you, and she will do it again. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on today's stories. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation, please do not hesitate to contact me.
Hello everyone, you won't believe what happened to me. Let's dive into this wild story. Let me tell you about the time my world turned upside down. It all started on a Thursday evening, the kind of evening you'd expect nothing out of the ordinary. I was John, just an average guy, quiet and unassuming. But that night, I stumbled upon something that changed everything. I found my wife Linda's phone buzzing on the living room couch. Curiosity got the better of me, and what I saw was like a punch to the gut. A text from her coworker, Mark, that left little to the imagination. That's how I discovered Linda's infidelity. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who jumps to conclusions or makes a scene. No, I needed more than just a text to go on. So, I set up a hidden camera in our house. If you're thinking it's extreme, well, desperate times call for desperate measures. Over the next few weeks, I became something of a silent detective. The footage I collected was like a series of gut punches, each revealing more of Linda's ongoing affair with Mark. Every hug, every secret meeting, it was all there in high definition. But I wasn't going to just sit back. I had a plan. It started with an anonymous tip to Mark's wife. A little piece of information that led to a big explosion. She confronted him right at his workplace. Talk about drama. It was a public scandal that rippled back to Linda. Linda, my wife, was shaken up by the news. I could tell she was nervous, always on edge, probably suspecting that her affair was no longer a secret. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Meanwhile, I was making moves of my own. I moved half of our savings into a separate account, a financial safeguard, you might call it. I was preparing for whatever came next. And what came next was a visit to a divorce lawyer. I needed to know where I stood legally. The lawyer was a straight shooter, told me exactly what my options were. I appreciated that. No sugarcoating, just the hard, cold facts. This was the beginning of the end, the start of a saga that would turn my quiet life into something you'd see in a movie. But let me tell you, living it was a whole different story. Linda was a wreck after that. She'd jump at every phone call, every knock on the door. It was clear she was scared of being exposed. But she still didn't know that I was the puppeteer pulling the strings. Meanwhile, I was setting up my financial fortress. Moving half of our savings was just the start. I reviewed every bank statement, every investment. I was leaving nothing to chance. If this ship was going down, I wasn't going down with it. The hidden camera continued to be my eyes and ears. Each day, it captured more of Linda's deceit, more of her lies. It was painful to watch, sure, but it fueled my resolve. Every secret rendezvous, every whispered lie, it all added to the case I was building. Linda's panic was almost palpable now. She was on edge, constantly looking over her shoulder. The fear of exposure had her trapped in a prison of her own making. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Let's dive right back into the thick of things. After setting the stage for Linda's downfall, I knew I had to up my game. So, I cooked up a story about a sudden business trip. It was a lie, of course, but a necessary one. Linda bought it, hook, line, and sinker, giving me the perfect opportunity to set my next plan into motion. While I was supposedly away, I hired a private investigator. If you think that sounds like something out of a noir film, you'd be right. But this was no movie. This was my life, and I needed all the evidence I could get. The PI was a pro, blending into the background, capturing every sordid detail of Linda's affair with Mark. Meanwhile, I wasn't just relying on hired help. I brought in some trusted allies, a few close friends who knew the real deal. They were on board with my plan, ready to lend a hand in any way they could. It was reassuring to have a small crew backing me up, making me feel a bit like the ringleader of a covert operation. Preparation for the confrontation with Linda was like rehearsing for the most intense performance of my life. I went over what I would say, how I'd say it, anticipating her reactions. It had to be perfect, a culmination of all the evidence and emotion churning inside me. The day of my surprise return came sooner than expected. I got back home, quietly, like a ghost. Linda was caught completely off guard, her face a mix of surprise and fear. I could tell she hadn't seen this coming. Without wasting a moment, I launched into the confrontation. It was intense, like a dam bursting. I laid out all the evidence before her. The texts, the videos, the testimonies. Linda tried to keep up her facade, denying everything with a frantic energy. But I was relentless, my words sharp and precise. When I finally showed her the video evidence, Linda's defenses crumbled. She saw the irrefutable proof of her infidelity, and the weight of her actions came crashing down on her. Her denial turned to desperation as the reality of what she had done and what she was about to lose hit her. That's where I'll leave you hanging for now. The story is far from over, but every tale needs its pauses, its moments of anticipation. And trust me, what comes next is worth the wait. As I watched Linda's world fall apart, a part of me wanted to relish in her downfall. But this wasn't a time for gloating. It was a time for action, for making sure that every piece of my plan fell perfectly into place. After the big confrontation with Linda, it was time to up the ante. I gave her an ultimatum. Come clean publicly about the affair or face the legal consequences. It was a hard line, but by then, I was all out of sympathy. Linda's reaction? Panic, pure and simple. But I was past caring about her feelings. I had a mission, and I was going to see it through to the end. Without waiting for her to make a move, I went ahead and released the evidence of her affair to our social circle. Yeah, you heard that right. I made everything public. The texts, the videos, all of it. The reaction was immediate. Our friends, our family, they were all in shock. Some couldn't believe it. Others were angry, disappointed. It was a social earthquake, and Linda was at the epicenter. But the fallout didn't end there. Remember Mark, Linda's partner in crime? His world came crashing down too. His affair was now public knowledge, and his employer didn't take kindly to the scandal. He got the boot, fired from his job. Karma, right? Amidst all this chaos, Linda was desperate. She came to me, begging for forgiveness, pleading for a second chance. But her tears and apologies fell on deaf ears. I was unmoved. My mind was made up. The divorce was happening, no turning back. So, I went ahead and filed for divorce, citing her infidelity as the reason. The legal process was set in motion, and there was no stopping it now. Papers were filed, lawyers were called in, the whole 9 yards. It was a whirlwind of legal jargon and meetings, but I was ready for it. This was the final stretch, and I was determined to see it through. And that's where I'll leave you for now. The story's far from over, but every good tale needs its moments of suspense. Stay tuned, because what comes next is the grand finale. By now, you know that my life had turned into something straight out of a soap opera. But trust me, this chapter gets even more intense. The divorce proceedings were in full swing, and it was time to talk about assets. Turns out, Linda's financial irresponsibility was about to catch up with her in a big way. During our marriage, I was always the one who kept an eye on our finances. Linda, well, she had a taste for the finer things in life, but apparently, she wasn't too keen on keeping track of her spending. So, when the lawyers started digging into our finances, it was like opening Pandora's box. Linda's reckless spending was laid bare for all to see, and it seriously jeopardized her claim to our assets. But that was just the beginning. The social fallout from Linda's actions was like watching a house of cards collapse. Friends who once welcomed her with open arms now turned their backs. Our family, who had embraced her as one of their own, were now cold and distant. She was ostracized, left to deal with the consequences of her actions alone. And then there was the housing dilemma. Without her fair share of the assets, Linda couldn't afford to keep our house. She was scrambling to find a place to live, but with her reputation tarnished and her finances in shambles, it was an uphill battle. But wait, there's more. Linda's affair didn't just wreck her personal life, it spilled over into her professional life too. Word got out at her workplace about the whole sordid affair, and let's just say her employer wasn't too thrilled. Before she knew it, Linda was packing up her desk, her career at that company over. Through all of this, I remained focused on the end goal, the divorce settlement. And when it finally came, it was a win for me. The judge ruled in my favor, granting me a favorable settlement. It was a moment of vindication, a confirmation that justice had been served. So, there you have it. The tale of a cheating wife, a quiet husband, and a dramatic fall from grace. Stay tuned for the final chapter, where all the loose ends get tied up. After the dust of the divorce had settled, it was time for a fresh start. I dove into my hobbies and interests, things I'd neglected for too long. It was like breathing new life into my lungs. I redescobert passions primeras de furbueniat. It was exhilarating, liberating, and exactly what I needed. But life, as you've probably figured out by now, always has a way of throwing curveballs. Linda, carrying the weight of her actions, reached out. She wanted to reconcile, to make amends. But I was done with that chapter of my life. I firmly refused her attempts. The bridge was burned, and there was no going back. Meanwhile, I was embracing new beginnings. I met someone incredible through one of my hobby groups. She was everything Linda wasn't: genuine, honest, kind. We clicked right away, and it wasn't long before we started dating. It felt good to be valued, to be seen for who I was, not for what I could provide. But the saga wasn't over yet. Mark, Linda's partner in the affair, was facing his own demons. Unable to cope with the fallout, he spiraled into a personal crisis. His career, his marriage, his reputation, it had all crumbled. It was a steep price to pay, and it seemed he wasn't equipped to handle it. Just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, Linda dropped a bombshell. She was pregnant. The catch? She wasn't sure who the father was. It was a mess, a real soap opera twist. And naturally, she turned to me, asking me to take a paternity test. Reluctantly, I agreed, but I made sure it was done legally, by the book. No room for doubt, no room for error. It was a strange feeling, being potentially linked to Linda again, even in this small way. But I needed to know, to have that closure. The day the results came in was tense. The envelope held more than just a piece of paper, it held answers, finality. And when I opened it, I found relief. I was not the father. For Linda, though, it was another layer of despair added to her already troubled life. And there you have it, the end of a saga that took me through the highest highs and the lowest lows. A story of betrayal and retribution, of falling down and getting back up. A story that, despite everything, ends on a note of hope and new beginnings. After the whole paternity test saga, I thought I'd seen the last of Linda's troubles. Turns out I was wrong. The news hit like a sledgehammer. Mark, the other man in this twisted tale, flat out refused to acknowledge the child. Linda was left high and dry, all alone in her predicament. It was a harsh blow, even for someone who had made the choices she had. But Linda's woes didn't stop there. Her friends, the ones who used to flock around her, now kept their distance. Her family, too, was less than supportive. She was isolated, left to face the consequences of her actions and her pregnancy all by herself. Meanwhile, I was living my life, focusing on my own path. I can't say I felt much about Linda's situation. It might sound cold, but after everything that had happened, my well of sympathy had run dry. I was indifferent, detached, just another bystander watching her world crumble. Linda's financial struggles were the icing on the without a job, with her reputation in tatters, and now a baby on the way. She was in a tight spot. Money was tight, and the lifestyle she was accustomed to was a distant memory. She was struggling, and it seemed like there was no light at the end of her tunnel. So, There you have it, the latest in the saga of Linda's downfall. Stay tuned for more twists and turns. The news of Linda's financial struggle didn't surprise me. She had always had a taste for luxury, a penchant for spending without thinking. Now, with no steady income and a baby on the way, her financial situation was dire. She was scrambling to make ends meet, a far cry from the lavish lifestyle she once enjoyed. Amidst all this, I maintained my indifference. It wasn't my battle to fight anymore. I had my own life to live, my own future to build. Linda's choices had led her to this point, and it was up to her to navigate her way out of it. Her once glamorous life had unraveled, thread by thread. The choices she made, the secrets she kept, had all come back to haunt her. She was facing the harsh reality of her actions, a reality that was unforgiving and relentless. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. Linda, who once had everything, was now struggling to hold onto anything. Her fall from grace was a stark reminder of how quickly life can change, how swiftly fortunes can reverse. As I watched from a distance, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. The saga that had consumed my life for so long was finally coming to an end. Linda's story was her own to write now, and I had my own story to live. Her financial struggles were just another chapter in her tale of downfall. She was learning the hard lessons of life, lessons about responsibility, consequences, and survival. It was a tough road ahead for her, but it was a road she had to travel alone. You might think the storm's past, but hold on to your hats, because there's still more to tell. Amidst all the chaos, I found something unexpected. A new community, a fresh start. In my new social circle, I found support, camaraderie, and genuine friendship. It was a diverse group of people, all with their own stories, but united in their willingness to welcome me into their fold. We shared hobbies, laughs, and the kind of conversations that stretched late into the night. It was a stark contrast to the loneliness of my past life. But while I was finding my footing in this new community, Linda's world continued to spiral. Her mental health, already fragile from the ordeal, began to deteriorate further. The isolation, the financial struggles, the weight of her choices, it was all taking a toll. Linda tried to claw her way back, seeking financial support to help with her situation. But she hit legal roadblock after legal roadblock. The system that she once thought would protect her now seemed to turn its back. Her attempts were met with frustration and dead ends. And then there was the chatter, the whispers and gossip that spread like wildfire through our community. Linda's story, her infidelity, and its fallout had become a hot topic. Most sided with me, empathizing with my situation, casting judgment on her actions. It was a harsh reality for Linda, a public opinion court where she had already been tried and convicted. Throughout all this, I did find moments of self-reflection. While I was satisfied with how things had turned out legally, I couldn't ignore the emotional toll it had taken on me. It was a bittersweet feeling. Victory, yes, but not without its scars. So, there you have it. The latest chapter in a story that's had more twists and turns than a mountain road. Stay tuned, because there's still more to come. Here we are, at the final chapter of this whirlwind tale. Just when I thought I could close the book on Linda and all the drama, life threw a few more curveballs. Linda reached out to me again, her voice tinged with desperation. She was seeking help, any help, but I had made my decision. I had moved on, and there was no going back. It was tough, but I remained firm in my decision to stay out of her life. I had my own path to walk, and it no longer included her. Surprisingly, a few of Linda's friends, the ones who had turned their backs on her, began to show her some sympathy. But it was too little, too late. The bridges were burned, and the distance between her and her former life was too great to bridge. During this time, I came to a realization. Yes, I had won legally and morally, but the victory felt hollow. The whole saga had left a bitter taste in my mouth. Winning the battle hadn't brought the satisfaction I thought it would. It was a victory, sure, but at what cost? Linda's life took another dramatic turn when she went into labor. She delivered the baby alone in a hospital, a stark symbol of her isolation. It was a poignant moment, marking the beginning of her journey as a single mother, a journey fraught with challenges and uncertainties. As Linda navigated the early days of motherhood with minimal support, I was embarking on a new chapter myself. My relationship had grown serious, a sign that I was finally moving on from the past. This new relationship was healthy, built on trust and mutual respect. It was a stark contrast to what I had with Linda. As I reflect on the entire experience, it's hard to ignore the complexity of emotions it stirred. The journey was a roller coaster, filled with ups and downs, triumphs and defeats. It was a chapter of my life that taught me a lot about myself, about others, and about the unpredictable nature of life. Linda, in her new role as a single mother, faced an uphill battle. The challenges of raising a child alone, especially under such strained circumstances, were immense. Yet, in a way, it marked the start of a new journey for her as well. One where she had to confront the consequences of her actions and hopefully find a path to redemption. For me, the end of this saga wasn't just about moving on. It was about growth, about learning from the past, and building a better future. My new relationship was a testament to that growth, a sign that life could be beautiful again, that love and trust could be rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. The story of Linda and me, of her infidelity and its repercussions, was more than just a tale of a cheating wife and a quiet husband. It was a story of human frailty, of choices and consequences, of pain and healing. It was a story that echoed with lessons about trust, forgiveness, and the resilience of the human spirit. If you want to hear how this saga ends and what I did next, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more updates. Hello, everyone. I hope this day finds everyone in good health amid this pandemic. I have a few crazy stories for you regarding violent and unfaithful women. Stay tuned. My best friend caught his wife cheating this morning with his coworker and shot the man in his house. He's in jail and everybody's in shock. Help me out. Okay? First off, let me start by saying this is my best friend of 12 years. He's a great guy who works hard and is passionate at his career. Anyways, a little after 11 a.m. this morning, he returned from his work-related business trip and caught his 40-year-old wife engaging in sexual intercourse with his 24-year-old travel partner. According to his travel partner, he ran upstairs and retrieved a silver handgun. He ran back down the stairs and, as the travel partner was putting his clothes back on, shot him once in the back. He collapsed and was rushed to the hospital while my friend fled the scene. His wife called the police and gave them his license plate number. He was caught by police entering the highway and charged with attempted murder, fleeing and eluding, aggravated battery, unlawful possession of a handgun, and possession of hollow point ammunition. This is in the state of New Jersey. No word on bail or bond. His wife has denied the cheating and stated he freaked out and got jealous because she was showing hospitality to his friend. Wow, really? No explanation as to exactly why he was over during that time. By the way, also a very completely different story from my best friend's version of events. This is the second time I've had a friend get charged in a domestic situation in recent months. Is there any way he can get out of this? I don't think so. Is there any self-defense clause he can use because, after all, a strange man was in his home, right? Not exactly. I'm looking for advice to give him, but I don't want to steer him wrong. He can make a few phone calls during a very short period in the day, but no visitations, which sucks. This is going to be a tough one for your friend. Wife still gets upset over the dumbest thing. Long story short, I've caught my wife cheating via Messenger for the last few years. The worst was last year when she broke her legs and I took care of her. Obviously, by accident that our son asked me to download a game on her phone last year. I decided to check her Messenger and boy, was my heart broken. I dig deeper and it went back to at least 4 years. I confronted her about it and I stupidly believed it was my fault. Fast forward to recently. Everything was pretty cool. Her and my son went back to her family's ranch in San Diego. I had a cool weekend and used my computer to log into Facebook. Somehow, it logged into hers. Surprise, I found her doing the same thing around her birthday. Full-on sex pics. I confronted her and she admitted her fault and apologized. Even did everything I said about her having to re-earn my trust. Anyhow, I brought up how I had been feeling still. She calls me, we video chat. I make a comment about how she looks like she's wearing makeup, and also how the light makes it look like she shaved her eyebrows. She immediately went into that fight mode. Red flags. I tried telling her I was just making an observation, but she immediately went into how she's been working hard at the ranch. No time to talk to anyone. I'm just demanding of her what to do. I won't let her shower. And I'm like, hold up. I never said that. My gut tells me she is still up to her no good shenanigans. Any help or advice is welcome. Well, if your gut is telling you that she's up to no good, then she probably is. Wife lies and inappropriate conversations continue. I'm 34. She's 32. Been together almost 11 years. Married almost 5. Long story short, she lives about an hour and a half away from work. She was having inappropriate, mildly conversations with her previous boss and spending time drinking with him. He randomly was in town and they went drinking. Ended up at her place. She called me crying saying he came on to her and was being creepy. She said she made him leave. This was May 2019. I believe this fully. I had no reason to mistrust at this time. After this, she began making major efforts to talk with him more and see him more. Listen, guys, from my experience, if a woman thinks a man is creepy, she is not going to make any effort to be with him. She's going to do her best to stay away. She would travel down to my town, go drinking with him and supposedly others, and then come to my apartment to sleep before driving back home for work. Eventually, I picked up on what was happening and went through her phone. I found nothing overtly incriminating, but there was enough to know what was up. I'm unsure they had sex, but they were rather flirty and planning trips to see each other. Pretty sure I caught it before they had sex, but that's irrelevant. After this, she claimed no contact with him. She sent him a message in front of me saying the contact was inappropriate and that she values me and needs to put me first. I had cheated when we first started dating and she gave me a chance. So I felt that she deserved a chance. What kind of relationship is this? We started trying to focus on us more, traveled a bit, and then seemed to fall back into routine. From there, I told her I like to reconcile and make things work for the future. I told her then there is no room for more lies or more inappropriate discussions. She came clean at this point that she had another entanglement. This one I was unaware of and turned out to be highly sexually charged. I do not know if they had sex, but I believe they did. There were many discussions she disclosed about sexting, and specifically a lot revolves around him finishing inside her. She told me all of this and also that she had purchased a remote vibrator for him to use while they were at work. Wow. She claimed she never used it because when they tried, the remote didn't have enough range from his office. I do not believe this. From here, I should have left. Yes, you should have. For some reason, I felt she'd been honest when I asked her to, and so I should try to see where we could go. This was in December of 2019. Since then, I've caught her talking with him and including sexual innuendos at least 3 or 4 times. She's refused to cut him out because she works with him and can't get another job right now because of the pandemic. She said she just keeps making mistakes and doesn't mean to. Bro, you need to cut her loose. I moved into a new place in June. She and her family came to help, and I later found out she was telling him she wanted to have fun physically and likes it hard via text while sitting having dinner with me and her family. I cannot seem to get myself to pull the trigger on divorce, and do not understand why. Well, from my experience and just my opinion, you need to cut this woman loose. Called the police on the ex-wife last night. My ex-wife cheated on me before our wedding 6 years ago. She decided to tell me about it after we got married, and she had continued cheating during that time. To be honest, I am not sure how many times she cheated. I caught her doing things so many times, having physical and emotional affairs with both men and women. The worst part was I kept trying to make it work. We had a daughter together during this time as well. I finally have learned to value myself and not accept cheating in a relationship. There were a multitude of reasons we didn't stay together, such as her being lazy, very unsupportive of my dreams as well. But her cheating drove a wedge between us that couldn't be fixed. Our divorce finalized June 9th, 2020. And I have been slowly getting all of our accounts split thanks to COVID-19 for making it take so long. During this time, I've been trying to be respectful and nice. However, over the last 2 days, I found some stuff that really made me mad and broke me down. This was yesterday. I was using the computer and found her search history from the day we filed. She was already living with her adulterer. The things that they looked up were mostly about me and very hurtful. I don't want to get into too much detail, but imagine your biggest flaws. It was a final straw. We had to meet later that day for the last account to be divided. And I couldn't even look at her. She kept probing and confronting me and told her I didn't want to talk about what was wrong. None of her business. She then proceeded to hit me with text after text saying how good of a person she is and how this really shows my character. I responded with, "Was your actions define your character, and anyone who describes themselves as you have is literally a narcissist." She proceeded to call me nonstop from multiple numbers, and I continuously hung up because I don't owe her anything anymore. And then she showed up at my house uninvited, screaming and knocking on all my windows and doors. She always wants to look for a fight, and I have no more fight left. I called the police, and they basically had to listen to both sides and all but shove her in her car to get her to leave. I heard her screaming to the cops, "I'm a good person. I grow things. I'm a hippie. He is just a coward." The cops proceeded to escort her to leave and told her if she came back that there wouldn't be any talking. This pissed her off royally. Then both cops told me I dodged a bullet by getting out of that relationship. Hearing them say that and watching her drive away was so much satisfaction. And even though she has put me through hell, that satisfaction of having some other normal human making me not feel crazy was humbling. That was so much better than stooping to her level and cheating on her, which I never did. Sometimes the high road can be just as satisfying and you don't have to be going or dragged through the mud. Well, I would say you definitely dodged a bullet. Cheating wife got full custody. Should I use this as an opportunity to start fresh? Age 45. I recently got divorced due to my wife's infidelity. But somehow the court granted her full custody even though I had a noticeably higher income and still made significant time to ensure that my kids, one is 14 and the other is 15, were happy and fed. Played video games with them, helped them study, worked on building a PC from scratch, go to sporting events, etc. Both flat out said they wanted to be with me rather than my now ex-wife. Never cheated or had any issues, but she was granted full custody. Since my now ex-wife has full custody of the kids, should I use this opportunity to start fresh? In other words, start a new family, pick up new hobbies, start a new business. Kids are 14 and 15, meaning that I only have to pay child support for a few years, and then I'm free. What's your suggestion? My personal opinion, don't neglect your kids. You don't need to have a relationship with the ex. Maybe somewhat of a relationship because of kids, but don't ever neglect your kids. It may come to bite you in the future if you do that. 27-year-old male caught his wife, 27, sexting 15+ people with explicit images. Some married, also 3 of which go to our gym and 1 is a coach. I caught my 27-year-old wife sexting multiple people on Tumblr last night. We've been married almost 4 years and have been together 8. I've never known or expected her of cheating on me. She told me they were only talking and not exchanging pictures, but they had been talking for a couple of weeks. I was upset and went to bed. I was upset but did not think this was a marriage breaker since we have kids. Her stepkids, my children, and she said she was just wanting attention. I somewhat understood why someone might talk to a stranger, even possibly sext. I've never done this, but we have always been all right with us watching porn. The next day I start digging through all her internet and social media trails. Turns out she has been doing this with 10, 15+ men. She said she has no idea how many. It just didn't feel that bad since it was just on the internet. And it turns out this has been going on for 4 months. And she was doing it with a coach at her gym and 2 other guys from her and my gym. And she was talking to them, messaging them up until yesterday. She was sending them explicit pictures, and they were sending them back. I saw the pictures. She swears she never did anything with them, and I messaged them, all of them, to try and get some kind of response from them about it. She said she'll even take a lie detector test, and that she never physically cheated on me. She's getting close. And she has offered to delete all social media and give me passwords to her personal stuff. She told me she will never see or talk to them again. She did all of this stuff at a time where she almost died from a blood clot. I was by her side constantly for 2 weeks, and she continued to sext after I constantly took care of her without one complaint. I was just thankful she was alive. I can't believe a word she says cause she seems to keep lying. But she could have told me everything by now. The only reason she stopped is because I caught her. I have no idea what to do right now. I've been thinking of divorce, but it would destroy our family. I have no one to talk to because I am embarrassed about getting completely cuckolded. And I don't want people to think badly of her, and we're getting around to the kids. Please give me some advice, guys who have been through something similar to this before. Well, there's an update to this. People are asking why she did this, and about 4 or 5 months ago, she was unhappy with our marriage. Because I became complacent. She made me aware of it, and I have been doing my best to show her more attention. Not get angry with her anymore. She even told me I was so much better and there was no way I'm gonna leave. She said that this is when she started cheating with strangers online. She has been a great wife and friend and is very level-headed. She has raised my children for almost 8 years now. Their mother is pretty much out of the equation. She has been their mother, and my children would be beyond devastated about us divorcing. I really don't know how to get over it. I can't stop thinking about all those pictures and different guys seeing my wife in a way I'm only supposed to. How can I get over this? From my experience, only time can heal these wounds. It's gonna hurt and sting, but you'll get over it in time. I'm 34 and I cannot bring myself to trust my 31-year-old wife. Can't figure this out. It's probably just me. I'm probably being a jerk. I don't think it's my wife's style to talk to me a lot via text when she's going for work. Okay, no big deal, right? Everyone works, and some jobs really don't give you the room for that. And like, who cares if she doesn't text you? It doesn't mean anything, right? Except that she sends like a lot of text messages. I don't really know exactly to who though. But I check the phone bills and she texts like 3 to 5 times the amount that I do. Several thousands of messages. We have 2 kids. The kids are great. On the surface, everything is awesome for our family. Decent jobs, cool kids, everything we need. Am I inventing suspicion because I feel guilty and tempted to step out? Probably. I've developed some decent crushes over the years. Why? At least in part to the absences of my wife. Not just the long silences, but the abrupt random work hours. Long evenings and no real communication around them. If I pry, she gets angry and I can't really deal with her anger. She flares up and things get confusing really fast. So, I've kind of split my mind. I've gotten into trouble for hiding stuff I shouldn't have. I am always acting out of fear, hiding from my wife's anger. Sometimes I'm doing dumb shit I shouldn't. Sometimes it's innocent. But she doesn't trust me fully. I've never cheated on her physically. But I've had some close relationships with some women she didn't appreciate or fully knew about. And I still hold on to this instance where she had a sexual relationship with a dude when we were young. We've been together a long time, and this was a long time ago. But I feel like it validates that she has the capacity to do it again. Or to have been doing it. I guess we all do. I'm not in a healthy way about any of this. We have tried a few therapists. It's going not great and flares up and it's painful afterwards. Right now I just tell myself, fuck it. I don't concern myself with her hours or the concept of when she'll get home. I increasingly want to snoop, but it's so stressful. She takes this laptop to work I know she doesn't need. I feel like she's hiding something. Or am I super paranoid and guilty? Or all of the above? Or none? My opinion. If your gut is telling you something, then there's probably something not right. I'm Chijistego. But I don't know if I should restart with my now ex-girlfriend. She is 30 as well. After her being physically violent on several occasions. Confused because I've developed a strong bond with her kids. They're both 5 and 6. Please help. I want to start by saying I am absolutely in love with this woman, despite her negative behaviors. But I think that's clouding my judgment. And I could use some advice. I've known her for over 10 years. Called her Vivi. Lost touch with her. Reconnected. The timing was right and fell in love. It was great. Darn near a dream come true. It was romantic, flirty, passionate. And while that was happening, I developed a strong bond with her kids, who didn't have a strong father figure in their life. We dated for almost over a year and a half. It was crazy how good it all felt. She's the one for me. At least, I thought it was. I think we moved too fast. During that period, we both opened up and got comfortable. She had her insecurities. And so did I, doesn't everyone? But I also did start to notice her verbal abuse. It was light and I brushed it off. Arguments would get a little disrespectful, especially on her part. But I shrugged it off and didn't verbally attack her the same way. That's never cool to do. 5 months ago, we agreed to moving in together. And that's when it got way worse on her end. Her verbal abuse got awful. Her guilt trips were used on me frequently. We argued several times a week. I got to a point where I would just say yes to avoid conflict. Meanwhile, the kids and I are doing amazing. They would darn near call me dad by accident. But I never forced them to say anything they didn't want to say. I'd go as far as to say I love these kids like my own. I can't blame her for me using alcohol to escape. But I started drinking more after arguments. And I would just leave her alone. I felt like I needed to just feel something else other than tension and anger. I hate arguing. It leads me to this now. She got crazy physically abusive on several occasions, leaving bruises and scratches on me after heated arguments at night. I never struck her back other than to get her away from me. And for those, I feel god awful doing that to my partner. Cops were never called out of embarrassment. I couldn't speak to anyone. We agreed to figure it out together. Then the second time it happened, and I'm left with more bruises and scratches. And the recent one left more marks on me as well as damage to my personal property. She moved out and I've since fixed and repaired things that were broken. This happened within 4.5 months. What's broken now is she, and I can't sleep without seeing the kids again. I know I miss her and the kids, but I can't figure out if it's love or the abused mentality saying I want to go back. She's willing to work it out, take professional advice, and work on herself. And even taking steps to replace any money lost during our time together. So I can see she's trying. And the kids keep wanting to talk to me. But I can't get through a conversation without feeling depressed or afterwards breaking down in tears for them. I feel like I lost my family. I know she's a good one because I've seen it. But I think her domestic violence comes from her past as a child and her previous relationship. Let me give you some advice. You can't fix that. She needs to get help from someone else. Is it dumb to try again with her after all of this? Or am I just feeling the effects of an abused person in an abused relationship with domestic violence? Is this depression? I don't know anything anymore because it doesn't seem real. Advice? Work it out with professional help. Run for the hills. I would say run for the hills. Am I not supportive enough for her to help her through this? I just need help. Well, the only help you can give her is step back and let her get her own help. Professionally. First off, I want to say this is not a story about a cheating wife or cheating girlfriend. This is a crazy story about a guy's girlfriend getting into a fight with his brother over politics. Girlfriend and my brother got into a fist fight over a political argument, and now my family is demanding I break up with her. I introduced my girlfriend to my parents, siblings, and extended family on a family get-together a few days ago. This was the first time I had seen them since the start of the pandemic, and it started out really well with everyone getting along and having fun. That would change as more alcohol was consumed. My girlfriend and brother got into a heated political argument that suddenly escalated to violence, resulting in substantial injuries for both of them. Accounts of who threw the first punch differ, and I frankly don't care, as they both actively contributed to the fight and antagonized each other. The fight was eventually broken up, but my girlfriend had the clear advantage. My mom screamed at my girlfriend to leave, so we left. I love both my girlfriend and my brother, and I don't blame either one of them for the fight more than I blame the other. My girlfriend also doesn't seem to hold any grudges and is embarrassed by her behavior during the incident. My brother and parents, on the other hand, place 100% of the blame on my girlfriend and demand that I break up with her, or they will cut all ties with me. I will not do that, but I want to maintain my relationship with my family and somehow get them to accept my girlfriend and that she should not bear all blame for this incident. My brother is also demanding that my girlfriend pay for his alleged medical expenses and is threatening to report her to the police if she refuses. My experience of growing up in this town makes me think sexism in the local police department makes it unlikely that anything would come of that report, as they would almost certainly refuse to consider the possibility that a woman can assault a man. I have offered to pay off my brother, but my girlfriend refuses to let me do that and says that she will pay him if he can prove that the medical expenses are real. My girlfriend still has clearly visible injuries, but did not visit the hospital. I suggested that she go to get her injuries documented, but she doesn't want to do that. I just wish everyone could forget about this and move forward, but writing this makes me think my family is acting unreasonably, and perhaps I should just cut contact with them as they are threatening to do with me. Perhaps growing up with these people makes me blind to how ridiculous their behavior is. I don't know what I should do. I think everyone will need some time, or at least make an effort to try to get through it. 27-year-old male thinks his girlfriend, 25, is cheating on him with her manager. Hey y'all, my head is going crazy and I don't know what to think anymore, so I'm hoping someone can steer me in the right direction on if I'm overthinking things or if what I see is actually true. I've been dating my girlfriend now for 4 years and things are usually great. We rarely argue, enjoy doing the same things, have the same friends. About 2 months ago, I noticed she was texting her manager a bunch, which started to raise my suspicion, so I brought it up to her attention, and she brushed it off and said don't worry about it, and that her manager is an older guy who she's worked with since she was 17. All of her notifications are turned off on her phone, but I will often quickly glance at who she's texting while it's open. As of this week, the texting has yet to stop, and I finally went through her phone when she was in the shower. I found out they both stop and pick each other up breakfast in the mornings before work. One day she does, one day he does. She just bought a bike last month and he bought her a bicycle seat for it. He constantly asks her to hang out and walk the dogs together, or if she wants to go to events with him. When she's not at work, he texts her saying work is so much better when she's there. And I noticed she texts this guy every single day, yet it was the only conversation in the text messages that had the shortest thread, meaning messages were deleted. 2 days ago, I sat her down and said I feel like she's cheating on me. I told her I went through her phone and noticed only his messages were deleted and nobody else's were. And her reasoning was that she needed space in her phone. Bullshit. I asked why they pick each other up breakfast when she's not even a breakfast person. And she said they do that to be nice, and that she always eats breakfast. I've seen her eat breakfast maybe 10 times. I asked why he bought the bicycle seat for her, and she said he had one laying around, so he offered it to her. I asked why the few times they've hung out she always gets dressed up. But when I'm with her she doesn't, and she said she feels comfortable wearing regular clothes when we go out alone. Interesting. After the first sit down, she said she went to work the next day and told her manager they can't text anymore because it's ruining her relationship. Again, I think bullshit. She would never have the balls to say that. She's kind of shy. I wasn't comfortable with her answer, so tonight I sat her down again and said I wasn't comfortable and needed more clarification. I asked her again why did she delete only his messages and nobody else's, and she said because she knew I didn't like him. Once she told me this answer, I said, okay, so why did you lie 2 days ago when I sat you down and asked you this question and answer with a different answer? And she said she doesn't remember what her answer was 2 days ago. I said, how can you not remember the truth? And she started getting mad and asked me what the benefit of staying in a relationship with me while cheating on me would be, and I said I'm not sure. She would have told me. There's so much I can type about this, but it would go on for days. Am I crazy for thinking she's cheating on me? That's a tough one, but if your gut is telling you something, then you might be onto something. If this story left you in shock, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping real-life tales. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to stay updated with all. Hey everyone, welcome back. I've got a jaw-dropping story to share with you today. My wife, 37, was a business partner with her father. They were both extremely wealthy because of this, which made me, 34, wealthy too. Since I married into her family, her father and I became very close, and he would show me a lot of business-related activities, so I understood them better. After 6 years of marriage, my wife started to distance herself from me. As part of her responsibilities, she would drive to clients' houses to deliver products to them and discuss upgrades. Obviously, being a well-spoken, friendly, and attractive woman helped business. My wife took this helping business notion a little too far one day. She started to seem particularly distant from me and excited in the weeks when she was scheduled to visit one particular client. I decided to confide in her dad about how I felt and what I noticed. He encouraged me to follow her discreetly to the client's house. I thought this was a sneaky answer from a normally straightforward guy, but I took his advice. I didn't know it was going to become the worst day of my life. I parked down the street from the house in question and watched her go in. The customer's name was Doug. According to our customer information, he wasn't married. Would that stop him from taking advantage of a married woman? Probably not. My mind was already picturing horrible scenarios, and it wasn't far off from what I was going to find. I walked up to the front door after 15 minutes. I thought about knocking, but decided not to, keeping in mind the word sneaky. I opened the front door slowly and peeked inside, but mostly listened. I could hear faint noises coming from the second floor. It didn't sound like any business conversation was taking place. I walked upstairs. My heart was racing, and I started recording on my phone. As I got closer to one particular door, I could hear them going at it. I opened the door and found my wife having sex with Doug. It was my worst nightmare coming true. My wife immediately turned to look at who was barging in on them and started screaming when she saw it was me. She tried to shield her body from the camera, but it was too late. It saw everything. She screamed for me to stop recording and let her get clothes on. I continued recording as I left Doug's house and got in my car. It recorded my sobs and angry words as I drove to my father-in-law's because I didn't know where else to go. When I got there, my father-in-law acted like a real dad to me. He listened intently as I told him what happened. He watched the video, but only to the point where he could hear moaning. He believed everything I told him, and better yet, he said he was on my side. 20 minutes later, my wife arrived there too. She walked straight into the kitchen, finding us at the dining room table. Before she even sat down, her father asked her how long she'd been seeing Doug. I looked at him in surprise, just like she did, because I wasn't expecting him to ask that question. I thought for sure she couldn't have done this more than once. She tried to say it was only this one time, but her dad told her he looked at the travel logs. He knew she was going to Doug's house way more often than necessary for the past 11 months. My jaw dropped, and I looked at her expectantly. She didn't know what to say. She tried to speak and protect her image, but it didn't make sense. At one point, it sounded like she was defending her actions by claiming it would help business. Her father offered no sympathy when he told her she was fired. She let out a weird noise of shock and started stammering. She wanted to keep her job, but what could she possibly say? I had her on video sleeping with Doug, and it was clear this wasn't the only time she did it. Besides the betrayal she dealt me, her father told her this was not the behavior he expected from his business partner or daughter. The real whammy that made my wife plead forgiveness was when he announced that he was going to disown her. It didn't matter how much she apologized or what she said, her father's mind was made up. She couldn't live in our marital home because her father's name was on it and he didn't want her there, and she couldn't live at his house either. She became homeless, living in her Audi. A nice car, but not a home. Once, when she called her dad crying, he told her she had 11 months, the duration of the affair, to stop and reconsider what she was doing. Because she didn't, he finds her despicable. He finished by saying I was lucky I found out the truth and got away from her. Her father gave me a choice. I could live in the marital home and it would become mine, or I could move in with him. He owned a mansion that was about the size of 2 houses put together. The 2 halves were connected by one long hallway. I knew I would have privacy, but most of all, I considered him family and needed his emotional support. I decided I would continue to live in the marital home, but would still visit his place from time to time. He also offered me a partnership for the family business he runs, which I gladly accepted. I've been working with him for 7 years now since all this happened. Since then, I was also able to meet a new amazing woman who is now my wife. We have 2 kids together, and life couldn't be any better. As for my ex, her outlook on life isn't too great. I can tell because of her pessimistic posts on Facebook and the occasional bitter message she sends me. I just show them to my wife, and we have a good laugh about it. She may have some money still, but what she doesn't have is anyone around her that loves or cares for her as I did. Wow. Op. This is one crazy story. It sounds to me like your ex started to believe she had it all and wanted more. She probably started to think she deserved more attention and that there was no better way or time to get it than with a client. Obviously, this proved to be a very stupid and selfish decision that would cost her the dearest relationships in her life and her career. You noticed right away when her behavior changed, and you asked your father-in-law for advice. I think you made lots of wise decisions through this nerve-wracking experience. She was left with nothing and no one to care for her. Let this be a lesson to keep your ego under control and never assume for 1 second that sneaking around to achieve something is a good idea. I am so glad to hear that you have a new family and a close relationship with your adoptive father. Thank you for sharing your experience and positive outcome. I wish you the best of luck in life. Op. Now, let's get into today's second story. My wife, 35, and I, 38, have 2 sons. At the time this story begins, Eddie is already 11 years old, and his younger brother Teddy is 7. One seemingly ordinary morning, my wife rushed off to work early. I prepared breakfast for my boys, and we had a fun, light-hearted morning chat, like we always do before school. The car ride to school was a quiet, and it seemed like Eddie had something on his mind. I tried asking him if anything was wrong, but he said no. I dropped them off as usual and went to work. After work, I picked them up from school at the request of my wife. She texted me, saying she had to stay at work late for a meeting. I hated when this happened, but was used to it by now. She stayed late at meetings at least 4 times each month for the past 10 years. When we got home, I started cooking dinner for my sons while they sat at the table and did homework. Eddie still seemed like he had something on his mind, but he did his homework and asked me questions about it. We ate dinner together, and they told me about their day at school. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary, but this was the last time I would have a conversation and dinner with my sons before discovering life-changing news. We were about to clear the table when Eddie said he had something to tell me. His voice cracked, and he sounded like he was about to cry. Teddy looked uncomfortable and asked Eddie if he was sure he should tell me about it. I assured them they could tell me anything. Eddie proceeded to tell me that Mommy told them I wasn't their real dad, that a few times every month, Mom would take them to visit their real dad. My jaw dropped. I asked him who their real dad was and if I knew him. He said yes, I knew him. It was Uncle Kevin. I could not move for a few seconds. Both the boys asked if I was okay, if I was mad, and what I was going to do. When I snapped out of it, I told them both that I loved them. I told them that according to me, I would always be their dad. They were happy with that and helped me clean up dinner. They went off to play, and I contemplated what I was going to do. My own brother fathered my children. How could this have happened? I couldn't believe it, and I couldn't prove it. I told the boys to wait until a specific day to tell Mommy that they told me I wasn't their daddy. They agreed and seemed to forget about it. I laid on the couch watching the boys play until my wife got home. As soon as she did, I told her I wasn't feeling well and had to go to sleep. I laid in bed awake until my wife put the boys to bed. When she got in bed with me, she tried to see if I was sleeping, and I pretended to be. When she was asleep, I unlocked her phone. My heart was racing because I never checked her phone before, and I kept thinking she was going to wake up. I found a messaging app tucked into the last page of an app folder called Utilities. It was like she didn't want anyone to find it on her phone. One of her messaging conversations was with Kevin. It was like reading an everyday conversation between a romantic couple talking about their day, when they were going to meet next, how the boys were, and stuff like that. Mixed into that were messages like, I love you. I consider you to be my husband. The children are lucky to know their real father. I will marry you when the time is right. And then there were sexual messages. Apparently, whenever my wife and brother wanted to have sex, my wife would simply tell me that she had to work late. That was all the proof I needed. Right here, under my nose on her phone. I felt like the biggest idiot in the world for believing my wife and family were perfect and honorable. I took screenshots of their conversations and sent it to myself. Revenge had no choice but to be sweet. The next day, I hired a PI and a lawyer. I already had some proof, but it had to be undeniable. The lawyer informed me that I could receive alimony from my ex, keep my house, and sue my brother for sleeping with my wife and ruining our marriage. A DNA test was done, quickly, I might add, on the boys, and it was determined that the DNA was slightly off from mine. A more exact match was likely to be found in my brother's DNA. Over the next month, a PI followed my wife. It was hard for me to behave normally during this time, but it helped to pretend that my son never told me the secret. At the end of the month, the PI sent me all he captured. There were 42 pictures of my wife, children, and brother. They were all behaving like a family at the park, at his house, and out to dinner. It was the weirdest, most heartbreaking thing to see. There were also pictures of my wife and brother through his bedroom window. The PI must have climbed a tree, and that's what I call dedication. The pictures were explicit. Now that I had all the proof I needed, it was time for my son to tell his mom that I knew the truth. I reminded him to tell her and Uncle Kevin next time they had a visit. 4 days later, my wife left with the kids under the pretext that they were going to visit my wife's mom. I've always hated her, but only because she always hated me. She probably wouldn't ever accept that her daughter conceived children with her husband's brother and passed them off as his own. They were gone for 30 minutes before they returned home. It was just enough time for them to arrive at Kevin's, only for Eddie to tell them that I knew the truth and race back home. It was too late though. I already changed the locks and put a note on the front door. It read, "It's time for the three of you to move in with Kevin. Divorce papers and court summons will be arriving there for mommy and daddy." My wife banged on the door and cried. It bothered me that it upset her so much. She chose my brother over me by sleeping with him, having his children, and maintaining a secret relationship with him for a very long time. Not only that, but she coached the boys not to tell me anything about it. Even though she sat by the front door crying for an absurdly long time, I had no desire to go out there and discuss anything with her. Eventually, Kevin arrived to pick them all up. They lived with him through the divorce proceedings and court hearings. I kept my house and won alimony payments from my wife. I didn't have to pay child support, and I won in court against my brother. He was ordered to pay me a very large sum of money for sleeping with my wife and ruining our marriage. After I became a wealthy bachelor, my ex's relationship with Kevin fell apart. It must have been different living together with the boys 24/7. The stress of going to court and losing a lot of money probably didn't help anything either. After just 1 year, my ex moved out of Kevin's house and in her mom's house. Throughout that year, and even afterward, my ex would text me at least once a day asking how I was or telling me she was sorry. I still got to visit with the boys, and I know they appreciated it, but it was nothing compared to how we used to be together. My ex could see the difference, and she blamed herself for it, rightly so. It's been 2 years since all of this happened, and the boys show resentment towards their mother for changing who their dad is. She can hardly stand the guilt, but what choice does she have? She continues raising them at her mom's house and has yet to return to the dating scene. My brother doesn't speak to me, but I know he regrets what he's done because my dad told me so. I just started dating another woman, and I have a good feeling about her. She has one daughter and wants to have more children. She's compassionate, kind, and honest. I know that even if she doesn't become my wife, there is always hope for a bright future. Wow, Opie, I am so sorry your wife did this to you. She knowingly went behind your back early on in marriage and had your brother's children. This isn't a story you hear every day, but unfortunately, it does happen. I'm glad to hear you have your dad to talk to, but for the most part, it seems you made smart decisions on your own. You took the time to figure out how to proceed. The things you set into motion helped you to make the cleanest break. It's lucky your wife didn't try to frame you for anything or plot to kill you. This actually happens in the world today. I'm so sorry about what happened to you and hope you are able to heal from this situation. If this story left you speechless, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more shocking tales.